Catalina, how are you? Good morning, everyone. So nice to be here. Thank you for joining us for a really nice topic to speak about this morning. John Clifton stays with us for this conversation. Thanks for being here and having us.
Thank you for being here.
And of course, joining me on stage are some of the happiest countries on earth represented here. Finnish Ambassador Mikkola, Icelandic Ambassador Valsdóttir, and Costa Rican Ambassador Crespo-Sancho. So congratulations are in order, Ambassador Mikkola.
Thank you.
Number one, once again. One of the things the report points out is that the happiest country rankings are a combination of factors, right? GDP, life expectancy, perception of corruption. What is it about Finland, cultural practices, policies, that you think makes you the happiest place on earth?
Well, I think it's many things. And first of all, thanks for inviting me here, and my colleagues are happy to be here today. So I think it's many things. But if you ask an ordinary Finn, are you happy? I think that the answer is mostly that I'm content with my life. So things are okay. And it's that can be divided into many different elements. And I think if I mention a couple of them, one is trust. You know, we trust our institutions. We trust our fellow citizens. We trust that our neighbors and our colleagues, and even our politicians, you know, they mean well. We might not always agree with them, but we trust that there is a goodwill behind it. Then there is our closeness with nature, and our weekly sauna sessions.
The sauna sessions, I hear, are key, right?
They are actually quite important. They're quite important for most of us, for not all of us. And then I think that also as parents, we can trust that our education system, wherever we live in Finland, provides citizens that can manage their lives in Finnish society. So they learn the life skills in our society. So there are many things, but you know, we are not really happy. I think our American friends, you smile and laugh much more than we do. But happiness for us is maybe mostly being content, as I said.
Ambassador Valsdóttir, is there something specific? Is there like a core Icelandic trait that you think allows people to be happy?
Yeah, well, we share a lot of the things that Leena-Kaisa just talked about. The trust and, you know, the sort of being a small and cohesive society where we sort of realized a long time ago that burdens shared are so much lighter. So there's a consensus that we all share the responsibility for people's well-being and equal opportunities, whether it is for education or access to health care or having paid parental leave for both parents. But at the core, I think that maybe that would be, you know, going with the flow. It's, we are so used to things changing. The weather changes every 15 minutes, and, you know, we have a really unpredictable nature. I think there might even, you know, a new volcanic eruption been starting today. I know that, you know, everyone is sort of expecting that, but that has been happening, for instance, every 2 or 3 months for the past couple of 3 or 4 years, and that can, you know, happen quite frequently. But what that does is that we just adapt to it, and I think adaptability plays a great role in how we sort of see things and how we react to things. So we have this saying that I'm not really sure, it doesn't quite translate, but we say, "Þetta reddast." And that doesn't mean, you know, that it actually means that things will work out. But it doesn't mean that "Þetta reddast" is allowing us just to sit back and wait for them to work themselves out. We do everything that we can to make things, you know, go as well as possible, but we usually know that we need to have a plan A and B and C, and sometimes we need to use the rest of the alphabet. But, you know, it's adaptability that plays a big role in how we sort of, you know, make things work out.
Yeah.
Because it, you know, they have to reddast.
Ambassador Crespo-Sancho, what about you? What about Costa Rica makes people so happy?
So let me give you an example.
Okay.
So have you all seen sloths? You know, they're very slow. Okay, that's our national animal. Let's start there. And I would say that the Costa Rican vibe is one that we call it pura vida. We use pure life for everything. We say hello, we say goodbye, we're doing well. Everything is pura vida. So if you ever go to Costa Rica, you will see everything is pura vida. So sloths, if you look at, let's go back to sloths. If you look at sloths, they're very slow, yes, but nobody wants to eat them, right? They do not want to eat anyone or any of the other animals in the forest. They get along with everyone. All the animals get along with them. However, they get to where they need to get even though it takes forever to cross a road. So it took us 10 years to be part of OECD, yes, 10 years, but we did it. So I think that's it. It's like getting along with everyone. It's respecting the other person in front of you, respecting yourself. It's like, okay, everything is pura vida. I think that's the Costa Rican part. And let me rephrase another important part. We're one of the few countries in the world that does not have an army. So that does make a difference because all of that, not every country can do that.
Yeah.
However, Costa Rica, all that money they invested in things that our Nordic countries here have been doing for many, many years.
Things like?
Education, social services, health, access. So what my colleagues have just said, Costa Rica has invested in that.
I think we need more sloths in America too.
We actually have a saying for that in Iceland as well. It's good things happen slowly.
Yes, you see?
I'm sensing a theme here. In addition to the saunas and more sloths. But John, for Finland to be number one again, this is how many years in a row now?
8 years in a row.
8 years in a row. Is that a new record? Is it unprecedented for this kind of survey?
It's definitely a new record. I think what it is it's an indicator that leadership is working. You know, almost every indicator that we look at with respect to Finland, we find that everything kind of looks great. You know, one of the questions that we pose to the entire world is, do you think that corruption is widespread within your government? We also ask, do you think corruption is widespread in your businesses? And when you look across so many different countries, you look at the percentages and you think to yourself, man, it just must be a given that everybody thinks corruption is just widespread in their governments. Then you go to Finland, it's not true. The numbers aren't outrageously high like they are in so many other countries, like right here at home. And so I think this is an indicator because at the end of the day, I think what most governments are inspired by is how do you create a greater life for everybody that lives in the country? And I think this is a report that says people are reflecting that very answer.
In this current context, though, Ambassadors Mikkola and Valsdóttir, I'm interested to hear your answer to this. There's obviously a time of growing tension around the world, geopolitical tension. You've got absolutely potential, knock-on effects from the war, Russia's war in Ukraine, knocking on your doorstep, you in particular, Ambassador Mikkola. I wonder how the perception of stability, of security, of uncertainty, how all of that impacts the happiness of your constituents.
Well, I can't say that we are immune to what's going on in the world, and you mentioned in particular in our closer neighborhood what's going on in Ukraine. So we very much feel for them, and we are concerned about the fate of the country, as it will influence also us in broader Europe. But at the same time, we have always been prepared for more difficult times. We have to, because of our history and because of our location in the map, and everybody understands the need for preparedness, and that also means that we actually have an army, and we will have an army also in the future. But in addition to that, we have been able to build a welfare society, which once again I underline is based on trust. And even during these difficult times globally and in Europe, the trust has remained. And I think somehow the sense of being together has perhaps even grown.
How do you think that trust has maintained? Because we've seen so many places where that trust in institutions has steadily declined. What is it about Finland or its leadership that allows that to sustain?
It's a good question, you know, and I'm trained as a lawyer, so maybe I should be a political scientist or sociologist, but I think it's partly cultural, and also we are a small country, and so it's of course a bit quite homogeneous country still. So perhaps it's easier to maintain this level of trust in a country like Finland, and where we actually, looking to the west, we have close neighbors, the Nordic countries, with which we share the same values and expectations for a good life.
Ambassador Valsdóttir, what's your take on that, especially in the context of where we are right now?
I agree with, I could just almost say ditto to what my colleague just said. I think that, you know, the concept of safety, you know, because Iceland is one of the safest countries in the world, it plays quite a big role in how we feel about ourselves and, you know, gives us this feeling of, you know, content and happiness. But also we are not, like Leena-Kaisa said, we are not immune to what's happening in the world, and we of course feel for Ukraine and every nation in the world that's dealing with conflict. That makes us maybe, you know, feel even more gratitude for our position in the world. We don't have a military either, but we understand that, you know, that makes us in a way vulnerable, and we have understood that for decades. So we have a defense agreement with the US, and we are also part of NATO, and we welcomed, you know, both Finland and Sweden when they joined a short while ago. But it's just that I think that what contributes to our feeling of happiness or content is also what Leena-Kaisa talked about, is that we are a small nation that can't be replicated everywhere, understandably. But when you know people, when you talk to people, when you have the proximity of other people, it's easier maybe to trust, and channels of communications are shorter, which makes maybe things a little bit more easier when something goes sideways, or there is a trouble that you want to address, or a problem you want to address. So I think that, yeah, well, you had quite a big question. It's kind of hard to, you know, answer that in this global context.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that what has also happened is that, you know, because we're not immune to this sort of changing global situation, is that there is more emphasis on defense, on, you know, increasing defense expenses. There is more discussion about it, which hasn't been the case in Iceland for, I think, ever. It's more now than it has been maybe even during the Cold War.
Yeah. John, this idea that size matters, that the smaller the country is, it's easier to maintain a sense of happiness or contentment. Is that a trend? Is that something you've seen in years past?
Not necessarily, only because I think one of the greatest outliers and one of the greatest mysteries from this research is a very small country in Africa who is often known as the Switzerland of Africa, Rwanda. You know, all of us are really familiar with the fact that during the Millennial Development Goals, Rwanda had tremendous improvements and was successful on almost every single front. But when we go to Rwanda and ask people to rate their lives, they rate their lives among the worst in the world. And it is quite puzzling. We don't officially have an answer for it. And so I don't know that size entirely accounts for all of it.
No, but peace and safety does. And that's not something that the Rwandans have had, you know, all the time. We have been happy, and we know that we're privileged. You know, we're privileged of being in, you know, relatively small nation with, you know, great social security. And also, you know, this cohesiveness that I talked about, that makes us share the responsibility for each other. And also, you know, a lot of freedom, because when you have a safe country, you know, your kids and your cats roam free, you know. It's just, you know, kids hang out with their friends and, you know, they don't schedule play dates. We actually don't schedule anything. You know, I'm sure, you know, my Scandinavian friends are now scheduling dinners with their friends in week 39. No one in Iceland knows when week 39 is. You know, I also have a cat that, you know, spends half the day at the local cafe and the rest at the local bakery, you know,
That's a
bringing
good life.
joy to everyone that meets him. So I'm pretty sure that contributes to happiness.
That is a good life. That is a good life. Meanwhile, Ambassador Crespo-Sancho, the story of Costa Rica is one of rising through the rankings, right? This is your first year cracking the top 10, I understand? Or
No, I think the first year, was it? We were in the top?
Yeah?
Yeah, number 1 many years ago.
It wasn't, so I think the confusion, and there's a bit of a debate around this, on are we measuring in this report happiness? What I mean is when you go to Webster's and you look up the definition of happiness, it gets even more confusing because the definition has 2 parts. One is this idea of contentment, and the second part is this sort of ephemeral or fleeting aspect of happiness. And so which one is it that we're measuring? So we have a different variable that we measure, which is we just ask people, do you have a lot of enjoyment in your life? Do you laugh and smile a lot? When you rank countries based on those positive emotions, or what we call positive affect, the top 10 countries in the world are not the Nordic countries. They're 8 out of 10, I think, usually, are Latin American countries. And oftentimes you hear people, when they consume that information, they say, nobody has fun, nobody experiences joy like Latin Americans. And so that might be what we're talking about on those original findings.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But on the rising through the rankings, on the improvement, is that an economic story? I mean, what's fueling that?
I think I was looking at all the rankings, and we all do pretty well, you know, in GDP, but there's other things going on there. And it's beyond, it's what you are all saying. It's the quality of life that we have. So I wouldn't say it's only economics, because Costa Rica has been doing well. You know, we live in a very complex region. Central America has been known for quite a bit of internal wars and other issues. I think it's more related to what I mentioned before. And what my colleagues have mentioned. A good education system, a good health system, a good community where in the end we take care of each other. And that sense of, I grew up and my kids grew up and my parents and grandparents grew up with this idea of peace is important, you respect the other person in front of you, your environment, take care of your environment. As you all know, Costa Rica is pretty well known for environmental topics. And it's about also, how do you live and work and just share your life with the other people who are not necessarily Costa Ricans? 20%, almost 20% of our population are migrants. And you don't hear about Costa Ricans having issues with migrants at all. Because they adapt and we work together. And of course there's issues here and there because there's human conflict. But how is it that happens? The education system is, I would say, fundamental for that.
So your diplomats, so you'll answer this diplomatically, but in the minute or so we have left, if you could each briefly, you're very familiar with American policy, American culture being posted here. America's now fallen, I think, to its lowest ranking, one of the lowest rankings it's had on the happiness report. If you had a piece of advice for how Americans might be happier, one thing you might suggest. Let's just go down the line.
Well, let me start with 4 things. Oh. But again, it's at the Costa Rican point of view.
Yes.
Not a criticism to any country. It's what we have done that works in our country. Not necessarily will work everywhere. Education, as we mentioned, you have to give people the skills to get a job, to get along, to learn the basic skills on respecting others. That comes at home and also in the education system. Good health, take care of your people. They need to be healthy. And they can't go to a hospital and then have a lot of money that they have to pay after for education and health. That does not make people very happy. Then the number 3 is the peace issue in a personal matter, but also in your environment, working with your neighbor or with your fellow countries next to you or fellow countries not so next to you. How do we work in peace? And the 4th, which is related to all of those 3, is good social connections. If you have good education, good health, good peace, you will have social connections because we have good times and we have bad times. When we have bad times, we need a support system. How do we get that support system? It could be friends, it could be family, but those social connections are really important.
Everything she said, and also increase women's participation in everything. You need more women labor participation. You need more women in decision making. I think one of the key infrastructures in Iceland is a heavily subsidized daycare system, so you don't have to choose between having a family, between having children, and having a career. So I would say, women leadership, go for that.
Ambassador Mikkola, I'll give you the last word.
Well, I've been a diplomat for more than 30 years, and I learned that it's not very advisable to give advices for the countries that you are stationed. But what I would say is that for all of us that enjoy simple things, and tomorrow I'm going to have a day off. I'm going to spend 1.5 hours drinking my morning coffee and reading the newspapers. Then I go for a walk. Then I go to a bookstore, and in the evening I go to sauna, and that is a perfect day.
That is a good day indeed. Please join me in thanking the ambassadors of Finland, Iceland, Costa Rica, and Svanhildur.